Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Shall we talk about one of the strongest, if not the strongest AR in the Warzone? It is my favorite, the Amax. Can be played in a variety of ways. Most people play it nowadays with a blue dot or a VLK optic. The gun is an absolute beast. If you want to play the Amax, it has one of the highest damages just to body, head, everywhere on any range. It's quite crazy how good it actually is and how hard it's also frying in the close range, which then already makes me always think an AR that fries in the close range, that's my gun I want to pair with the sniper. Let's dive down into the recoil patterns, how to counter the recoil, how it looks like, where do you have to pull, the time to kill, the damages, everything. Let's get the gun explained. The Amax base damage values on a 0 to 24 meter range are 56, 42, 35, and 35. Those are absolutely mental numbers. Let's compare that to the Kilo, for example. The Kilo has a really nice and high fire rate, but not that much higher than the Amax. But look at that, 28 to the chest. That's 42. 42 damage. That's absolutely mental. And then the damage fall obviously happens. There's 4 damage less than on the 35 meter range. So the Kilo next damage fall is obviously a little bit longer, up to 54. So we'd have to go for this one to have kind of a comparison, but we're still 10 damage to the chest more per hit. And also 11 to the hit more. And then the 47 meter range, even there, it's still 10 damage more happening versus the Kilo, but the bullet velocity is obviously fairly low on the Amax, which kind of makes you not want to use it on a too much range, because it's like fairly annoying to use a low bullet velocity gun on like 54 plus meters. It's that here in the damage comparison chart. We have the bullet travel time not included so far. We're going to start with the Amax has like down here over lower than 500 millisecond time to kill, which is faster than the MP5, where the Kilo really in comparison is actually a trash gun if we would just be looking straight at where it's going. But you have to consider that the Kilo might have a lower time to kill, but the Kilo also has 0 recoil. I mean, the standard Kilo recoil pattern is non-existent pretty much. It's half of the vertical recoil of what the Amax has to boast. And if we include the bullet travel time to target, we kind of see like where the problems to a certain degree start, where just on a long range you really get to, start hitting those shots, especially if you put on the super long range barrel on the Kilo. It just is even more efficient than the Amax. The Amax gets also more efficient over range, but I kind of feel like with where the Amax is really brilliating at, that's this range, 0 to 30, 40, boost that up with the range of the barrel and the Monolithic Suppressor, and you get a gun that you want to shoot like on 50 meters roughly, and you're just going to be destroying everything with the absolute mental time to kill. That's the same as the Kilo on the low ranges too, like even on the longer ranges. So you have the absolute super killer time to kill that you can almost boost up to 40 meters with the attachments, and you just have a crazy fire of a gun. So this would be the absolute base Amax. How does it behave? Where does it go? We shoot it into the wall. We have the 45 round mag on, so we just see a little bit more what it comes down to. And there's a huge horizontal deviation. And there's a huge vertical pull-up. Huge, seriously. But the good thing, what we can already see is the horizontal deviation is not really there. I mean, the gun has a lot of visual recoil, but actual recoil is not really to be found. I mean, there is literally no need for command of foregrip on this gun. Usually I always thought the Amax is a command of foregrip gun, but there is just no horizontal. There's nothing. There's no bounds. It's just like one straight line. This is absolutely crazy. Now let's see what we would have to put on to really fight against this recoil. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we just saw the base recoil, which was a huge vertical bounce. So what do we want to do against the vertical recoil right now? So first and foremost, the first thought is always barrels. With the barrels, we have the choice between Intruder, Zodiac, and Squall. The Zodiac has absolute recoil control added to it, which would have the value of 22% vertical recoil less, also 42% bullet velocity and 32% range modifier. If we look at the Intruder and the Squall barrel in comparison, yes, they give you ADS speeds, but honestly, even less bullet velocity on a gun that doesn't have good bullet velocity, I don't feel so. Minus 22% on vert recoil, that's better than a foregrip and the insane bullet velocity. I love to see that. Zodiac barrel it is. Then you obviously want to have the 45 round mag. Yes, there is a 10 round mag. No, we don't want to play the 10 round mag. As I said, the gun has a lot of visual recall, so the gun has a lot of and that means for me personally that I really do want to slap on a scope, and for me there's no question that the Corp Combat holo sight is the way to go, especially when you're having the blue dot on top of that with cream and cheese. The frame is just gigantic, you can see everything, you have the 1.5 times magnification to use this gun then perfectly together with the sniper. Can't say no to a Corp Combat holo sight. Yes, obviously you can play this with the VLK because the VLK optic gives you also 10% vertical and 10% horizontal recoil reduction, but I really don't want to use the gun over 50 meters kind of because of the visual recoil plus the actual recoil, where I'm then saying, yeah, I'm going to slap the VLK optic off and I'd rather play with the Corp Combat holo sight. But that's definitely personal preference. If we're looking at the muzzle again, the question comes, do we want to go monolithic or compensator? So the question here would be the trade-off between 10% range, 15% bullet velocity, and also 27% vertical recoil potentially, but with only adding 4 milliseconds of ADS frames. And I gotta say, if we looked at the gun's time to kill chart, you can boost the range a lot by 42% bullet velocity and 22 with the barrel. But do we really need even more range? As I said, I kind of want to aim for the sweet spot of maximum 50 to 60 meters, and that's already reached with the barrel. We get it pumped to that point where it's fantastic, but now with the stark vertical recoil that's pumping up, why don't I just slap a compensator on the gun, which works better than any foregrip, considering that it's so much vertical recoil reduction for the trade-off of only plus 4 milliseconds ADS frame. Yes, you ping up on the map, which really doesn't matter in squads, which really doesn't matter in trio. In duos, maybe a little bit more, but even there, you shall not overestimate the power of people's hearing, because they can spot where you are despite having a suppressor on. We have a whole video about that, about Monolithic Suppressor with the compensator and muzzle brake. If you have a question about that, you should watch that video. But I do prefer the compensator, and yes, I do play it in solos exactly like that with the compensator, and I'm not scared of third parties. Last but not least, there is the final attachment to put on, and that's absolutely personal preference here. As we see, usually commando foregrip would be the vibe, because you want to have the commando foregrip to work against the horizontal recoil, but there is no horizontal recoil. So technically we would have the chance to actually put on a Ranger, for example, for this sweet aiming stability to just make the gun more follow the recoil path, plus then even more vertical recoil reduction. Or if you really want the bonus ADS speed, you have two options here. You can go for the close quarter combat stock, for example, which would give you minus 33 ADS frame. You could do no stock, but then we have even more vert recoil, so it doesn't sound like an advantage. Or you go for the axle stock, which also gives you ADS movement speed. So you have two options here when it comes down to stocks, or you obviously go, as always, for the tack laser instead of the grip, which would then also add aiming stability and aiming down side speed. But that again is, if you feel you can handle the recoil fairly easy with a compensator, boom, bonus ADS speed. If you think you need the Ranger foregrip for that really sweet spot of having the absolute control, damn, Ranger foregrip. Let's test both builds out with a Ranger and with the tag laser to see which one is more manageable. Welcome to the absolute beamer Amax now with the compensator and the grip for super recoil control, and in comparison to the base version, you already feel we have like half the recoil, even less than half the recoil. And if we try to control this bad boy, we just shoot on one spot. It's absolutely beautiful. The double recoil, the foregrip, and the compensator just going crazy. But here's the trade-off. If you look at the gun, damn, that ADS speed. When we're bunny hopping around corners, ADSing in, and when we're already around the corner before the ADS already happens. So you kind of feel like, yeah, the ADS could be a problem. How does the gun now feel if we get the grip off, put the tack laser on, and go for the absolute ADS plus recoil control trade-off? And here it goes. The tack laser without the foregrip. Why the compensator over the foregrip? Because the foregrip adds more milliseconds to the aiming down side speed, whereas now by taking the foregrip off, we lose aiming down side frames, and we lose even more with the tag laser. So we zoom in, super ADS speed, and the recoil control is still fantastic. When we have a little bit more, but not that much that the gun feels completely out of bounds. If we're trying to just spray it into a wall, slow and steady, we have more or less feelingly the same. Obviously it goes a little bit more because yes, we do have 17% more recoil happening here, but not as much as we would expect, not as much as to make this absolutely an unstable monster. So this, I would say, with the crazy ADS speed, I mean, if we now fly around corners, we just zoom in. That's crazy. So with the tac laser, I would say that's my build now to pair with the sniper. But let's see also, how does the recoil behave if we slap a VLK on, which is 10% more vert and horizontal recoil reduction for the people that want to pair the Amax with an SMG. And that's now the VLK optic on the Amax. 10% more vertical, 10% more horizontal recoil reduction. The curve should even be better. And obviously the spray on 1 point should be the best from all of these sprays. And yes, it is absolutely true. We just spray perfectly. The curve is a little bit closer together. So if you want to play this with a VLK optic, you can absolutely do that. I would still advise highly to use the Compensator instead of Foregrip because it works so good. And no, you really don't need a Monolithic Suppressor, guys. Don't get bamboozled. Watch the video about the Monolithic, learn something there. If you can't get rid of it, yes, obviously the Compensator can go for a Monolithic, but I think the Amax is just the perfect showcase. Why Compensator? Let's draw someone in a verdict. The Amax is an absolute crazy gun. It has super high damage. The recoil is absolutely manageable. There's no horizontal bounce. Yes, the visual recoil is actually super high, but the actual recoil is low. So you got to get used to the visual recoil to then actually manage the real recoil and beam people left and right. And the gun is the perfect showcase for why Compensator is a killer attachment. It reduces the ADS frames tremendously, and you want that on the Amax. And it at the same time controls the stark vertical recoil because the gun is only vertical recoil, and it controls the vert recoil better than any foregrip does. If you can't let go of the Monolithic Suppressor, that's your problem. You're missing out on having so much fun with certain guns that are only vert recoil. Like the M13, for example, we have a crazy Monolithic, not Compensator build there, where you really can just enjoy the gun even more. It sticks to the middle of the head with the M13, for example, and for the Amax, it's also just way better. This would be the build I would definitely play together with the sniper, with the Corp Combat Holo side. And yes, if you actually want to play the VLK, it's the same build, just with the VLK scope. Both are super fun. Give me a go if you tried this out. How do you feel about the Compensator? I know a lot of you really have problems to let go of it, but I just encourage you, give it some games, try it out, and see how this absolutely feels for you. Thanks for watching our Gun Explained video series. This is one of my favorite series on YouTube to do right now. And yes, don't worry, we have some snipe videos coming with the Amax paired with the AX50. And yes, we're going to have some SPR Amax videos coming too as soon as we can let go of the ASVAL. But the ASVAL is too much fun right now being out there. I wish you a wonderful good time in the Warzone. Enjoy your new Amax build where you're going to just be the absolute dominant factor in the Warzone.